Hey, what's going on? It's Doug here, and today we're going to go over providing human researched information, your own actual input, while using ChatGPT. This is the method that Tony Maritato explained a couple weeks ago on the channel. I actually published a separate video where I took that segment out. It's very interesting. It's a good use case, and it's a way that you can make your content more unique and actually have accurate information, your own input, and have more of a human touch. I'm not sure if it would get past the AI detectors better, but my hunch is yes, because it's potentially using your own words. If you want to download the job aid, which I'll probably make a few updates, but if you want to download the job aid to go through this, there's a link in the description where you can download essentially, I think it's like a 1 or 2 page process flow. So you could use it yourself. I'm going to go over one example here live today. Let me know in the chat if you could hear me. I see Leather Art is out there in the chat. So we're going to go over one specific example, not 100% all the way through, but we're going to show you exactly how you would do it. You can use this as a starting template and then customize it for whatever kind of content you are doing. You can send this video to assistants or other people on your team that want to know how to do this as well. And most likely, after we finish up later today or sometime soon, I will probably go ahead and just create a demo video doing this, which should only be a few minutes long, under 5 minutes. Tony explained that he was publishing about 1,500 to 2,000 word articles in 1 hour, including everything. He has the content formatted so he can copy and paste it directly into WordPress. And then he also inserts images, links, and other stuff. So that's including everything. So we'll go through it. I'm not going to beat around the bush too much. If you do have questions, let me know in the chat. During the demo, I'll probably hold off on answering them, but I'll save them towards the end. And Ab says he could hear me. And David, what's going on? Good to see you. So let's get into it. Let's also pick something that's relevant. So we're going to look at a specific topic. Why start a new podcast, right? Why start a podcast? And hopefully we'll get some insightful information. So we're starting right now, about 3 minutes in. I'll answer questions. We'll talk about other stuff as well. All right. So we're over here in ChatGPT. One key thing is to have this plugin here, Web Pilot. So go check out the plugin store, turn on Web Pilot, and it will go fetch the information for you. All right, it'll go to that URL, it'll consume the information, and then essentially you could feed it the information that you wanted to use. This is a big, huge, massive advantage, right? So there are things that ChatGPT doesn't know about. There are things that are potentially controversial. In Tony's case, he was citing medical journals. So he just put in the URL for a medical journal article and used that as the input. For me, I'm just going to hop over, and I've already Googled this here. So why start a podcast? And I'm going to ignore the SGE and the other information here, but I will snag this. We have the Riverside FM and improve podcast, 21 reasons, and then the Forbes article. 3 should be enough. You could obviously put more and more in there if you wanted to. So we're going to pop over, and I'm going to copy and paste this. I prepared ahead of time. So right here, I just put in, I want to give you input for a blog post. Then I want to give you a list of questions so I can give my input. All right, so that's the opener. And I'm going to go ahead and send that in. see what happens. It says, okay, we can do that. Cool. So I will give the first input here. And I'm going to do it one by one, just so we can confirm that it's taking it. So we can see here, it is using WebPilot to go pull the data. Takes a second to do this, and typically it'll give a little summary of the article. Which this will take a moment here, but I'm going to go ahead and start typing in the next one, and actually the next two. I'm not sure how many you can put in here at one time, but I have tried two. You could probably put several and it'll be okay. I've found the overall speed is maybe a little slower. It kind of throttles up and down. You can see it's slower and faster and whatever. So we're getting all this. I don't think I really need to have the summary, but it's kind of nice to see the information that it is providing. So as a side note, as I'm waiting for it to type in here, you can use ChatGPT to summarize longer articles. And the thing is, if I was going to write an article, benefits of podcasting, and I read the article over here from Riverside, it might be highly derivative if I actually read the article and then wrote an article myself right afterwards. However, if I just get the outline, it's a little more generic. It's more like research. So they do give us some thought-provoking questions for my input already, but I'm not going to worry about this so far. We're going to put in two more pieces of input here, two more URLs, and probably what we should see is WebPilot going to fetch the content. I'm going to zoom in, going to fetch the content of the first article, and then it'll probably do the next article as well. Fingers crossed if this works how it's supposed to. So it grabbed the first one, it went to go grab the next one, and having this ability to put in the specific URLs, the specific source data, is really a game changer. And I think this is, one of the pieces where I was trying to figure out, say, a year ago when I first started using ChatGPT and finally came around to AI. I thought it would be great if I could reference an article, perhaps that I've already written, right? And tell ChatGPT to write a YouTube script based on that topic where I've already written it. I know it's information that I agree with and it's high quality. I was like, I wish I could do that. And, you potentially could come up with custom solutions to do just that. However, now that we have WebPilot and similar other plugins, we can do this directly. Huge time saver. And you can see here, I've done just a couple minutes of copying and pasting, and there's all this information in ChatGPT for us to use. So we've put in 3 inputs, and we have a pretty solid summary. We have the thought-provoking questions. So I could copy and paste the thought-provoking questions, but I'm just going to say, give me the list and consolidate it so that I don't have to go through the couple different responses here. So it may give me a couple different ones, but it should be enough to work with here. In the description, I promised that I was going to make this easier, right? So I'm going to get these questions from ChatGPT, and then we're going to copy and paste them over into a Google Doc where you could do voice typing. Fingers crossed that I'm going to be able to do voice typing with this microphone, even though I'm using it as another input. I think it should probably work. There's a small chance it'll crash the whole live stream, but we're going to take that chance today. So now we're getting based on the input, we have questions from ChatGPT that I should answer. So the eventual article will have my thoughts, my personal stories, and other insights by me personally. So that makes it, even though we put in 3 articles that are ranking in the top 5 for exactly what I Googled, we're going to get my inputs as well. That should make the article more unique, have personal experience, firsthand knowledge, and the part that makes it human, the part that makes it hopefully a little more interesting. Now, I'm not going to answer all the questions. I'll probably lose my voice if I try to do that. But I want to go through the example of how we might do this. So I'm just going to copy this over right here. We're going to pop over to this other tab where I've just created a Google Doc. We lost the formatting a little bit here, but it really doesn't matter too much. And all you have to do, so I'm just going to fix the formatting here. I think I probably could have told ChatGPT to format it slightly differently, exactly how I wanted, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to go to Tools, go to Voice Typing, and then I'll be able to answer the question. So let me see what the first question is. How did your personal passion for a topic or expertise in a specific field influence your decision to start podcasting? Great. I can answer that one. So I'm going to pop to Tools, go to Voice Typing. If it cuts this off, then I don't know what we're going to do. All right, we'll do Voice Typing. And when I click there to speak, that's when all the mayhem could start, or it'll just work. I got obsessed with earning money online and affiliate marketing and SEO back in 2013. I learned mostly from podcasts. And at the very beginning, I thought it would be great if I had my own podcast to help other people out, just like I learned from the people that I was following. Period. New line. All right, I won't do the new line. I was completely obsessed with SEO and niche sites, so that's exactly what I started my podcast in. Period. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I thought it was going to be worthwhile, especially since I saw other people do a really good job with their podcast. All right, so I just answered that question. It's redundant. There's run-on sentences. I didn't use punctuation. It doesn't matter at all. All right, it doesn't matter. So we'll do 1 or 2 others here. Content creation and format. What strategies do you use to create engaging podcast content? How did you decide on the format of the podcast? Solo, interviews, etc. All right, so I could just pop back here, click the little mic, and then answer verbally again. I wanted to make sure that I had enough interest in the podcast so that I could do it for a very long time. Period. I also knew that I wanted to have some interviews, some very long form interviews, as well as solo podcasts, sometimes where I just riffed and went on tangents. Period. I realized that would turn some people off, but for the right audience, it would work just fine. So I tested other formats as well. Sometimes I tried to have a blog post that I translated over to a solo episode. Sometimes I tried to make really short episodes. Sometimes I tried to record out while I was traveling, and just to test things out. Period. It might be delusional, but I thought that if I created content that I personally was interested in, the audience will often follow along, even if they're not personally interested in the topic area, period. I was confident in that because I knew that I, as a listener, I follow people where I'm just interested in their stories versus the specific topic area, period. Not everyone's like that, but I figured if other people can do it, I may as well give it a try. Okay, so I gave 2 answers. Again, these are kind of run on, they're redundant. Sometimes there's not a full thought in there, right? So what I can do, just quickly, I'm going to see the word count here. So it's 102 words for the first answer. And then we have 200 words for the second answer. And the interesting thing here is that is way faster than I would be able to type it. And it's very casual. So what we can do is go back to the chat and copy this in. So I said I answered the question. And just for, I think ChatGPT would understand this, but just for clarity, I'll say answer equals there. So it's just very clear. And I could say, please edit and rephrase for clarity. Let's see what we come up with. So this is just an answer to that specific question. And in a second, I'm going to go through and ask for the full outline, right? I'll say, hey, give me the full outline for all the information that we have in here from the 3 inputs, and we should be in good shape. All right. So they're just rephrasing this section here. And it's cleaning it up. So it's making it more concise. It's great. It has my own voice in there, which is perfect. All right. David says, what did you use to get the word count? So in Google Docs, you hit Shift Command and C, I think. Shift Command C. So it's one of the tools, just the word count here. So if you highlight it, Shift Command C gives you word count, and then you know exactly what it is. I just knew the keyboard shortcuts, but it's in the tools section there. So pretty helpful to do that. And we'll pop back here. So we have my sort of longer rambling answer with no punctuation, and then we have this full answer here, which makes sense. I could add more style and say, add some humor in there. I can say, use shorter sentences, whatever, right? Okay, so I'm going to hop back and doing it a tiny bit out of order, but I will ask for an outline. So I'll say, write it. Actually, we'll copy and paste this over. So create a detailed outline about why someone should start a podcast, and I'll provide my answers to the questions. So include parts of the outline so that I can write my parts and provide answers. So we should end up with a detailed outline here. So it's using all the inputs, right? All the inputs that we put in there. It also knows the questions that it provided to me So when the time comes, I can put in my specific answers to those questions. Additionally, what I could do is answer all of this stuff over here within Google Docs. I could then potentially, I'm not 100% sure, but I might be able to just provide the link to Google Doc and see what happens. However, if that doesn't work, you can hop over here, download the PDF or the text document, and just upload it to the chat, and you'll be able to have all your inputs in there and say, hey, integrate my answers from the document into the actual article. They are providing here, we see little sections where it's asking me for my particular input, which is perfect. So what we can do, because I see the first one here is like the question that I just answered. So once we get the detailed outline, we'll be able to ask for specific sections to be written. And this is one thing that Tony did specifically. He would just write one little section at a time, which is very helpful. That way you end up with a more accurate word count for what you're aiming for. And you're kind of wrangling it a little bit more closely so that it doesn't go off in a weird direction. So you don't get 1,500 words that may be going off where you don't want it to. You'll end up with 200 words, and you see that small section if it's on track or not on track. So it makes it a little bit more manageable overall. So we have this full outline here. Like I said, I'm just going to dive into this portion here. So I'll say target 250 words. I will say write this specific part. And I will also say, be sure to use my input from earlier. And actually, I will just, because it's not a huge section, I will just go up here to the revised version. So be sure to use my input. So I asked for about 250 words. Let's see what we have here. So you do have to take it sort of step by step here. If you wanted to get a little bit more content in a shorter amount of time, or at least fewer back and forth, you could experiment to see if you can get 500 words. Now, depending on, I mean, this potentially would be a very long article, right? If I did 250 words for each one of the small sections, it would potentially be longer than we want. So it just depends on how much you actually want for certain sections. It's totally up to you. You could be writing a short ebook and you want this to be 25 pages. So you would have to really extend this out and come up with like subtopics in each of the areas to make it longer, maybe more personal stories and examples, but that is how you would do it. So now we end up with discovering your passion and sharing expertise. So like I said, we end up with some of my stories and it kind of fits in. It fits in perfectly. It's a lot better than what you would get if you just said, hey, here's the 3 inputs, write an article. This has my own information in here. It makes it much easier. So you can, copy this over and put it into your main doc, which I'm just going to go to this document here and put it in, and we have this section here. So that is how you would do it. You would do it again and again until you build out the whole article here. And like I said, you could just use the voice typing, this little guy here. You just use the voice typing. You can make a very long answer. You can avoid punctuation. You could just use your stream of consciousness and answer something really long and end up with something pretty good. So let's use the same sort of technique that I did for the first answer. So I'm going to ask for proofreading and clarifying, but I'm going to do it for the next one, which is a little bit of a longer section. And by the way, if you do want to download the cheat sheet for this process, there's a link in the description. It's totally free. It's only a page or two. It's actually just this landing page. So human researched AI content in 1 hour. So just sign up here. You join my email list, but you end up with value on the other side. So my answer to this question is a little more long-winded. Again, no punctuation. You just talk. I've heard of people trying to do this, on their phone using the Notes app, and I think it could probably work where it's pretty easy. You just have it on Notes. I guess if you have an Android device, you may just go directly into Google Docs, but it's a way that you can make this very low friction. Okay, so we end up with the revised version here. They make it more clear and coherent. So I'll just read the first paragraph. When planning my podcast, my primary goal was to sustain long-term interest, both for myself and my audience. I envision a mix of content formats, including in-depth interviews and solo episodes where I could freely explore various topics and ideas. I was aware that the eclectic approach might not appeal to everyone, but I believe it would resonate with the right audience. So much more eloquent than my original answer and very clear. So here's the thing. So you just keep doing that until you end up with your full article. The other thing that I think many of you have figured out in the audience here, Mohammed just joined us in. You can use this for other types of content. I'm pretty sure, I haven't tried this, but we'll share the screen again. I'm pretty sure I could ask for that in the form of a YouTube script for YouTube Shorts or a TikTok video. And it would rephrase it. It would potentially tailor to the audience a little bit better. I could add a different style if I wanted to, but you could use the same ideas to have your content repurposed. So one thing that if you're on my email list, I emailed it out to people yesterday. If you're not on the email list, you should join. There's a link in the description. I obviously want people on the email list, so go sign up there. But I'm launching a new podcast in the new year, probably about a month from now. I'm not 100% sure. I may push it till early February. I think that might be smarter. But I am going to use ChatGPT to help write scripts and really outlines, because once you have the outline, I could skip things, I could add things to it. But ChatGPT or similar tools, but ChatGPT specifically can do fantastic research, especially for topics that maybe I am aware of, but I'm not up to date with the latest information on whatever the topic is, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe there's new lenses and stuff coming out for cameras, and I don't know what the new lenses are yet. I'll have to go look it up, but I could feed in URLs from the Canon website about a new lens that they have, and it'll provide all the specs and information. And sure, I would need to double check it, but basically there would be pure information that I could use for a YouTube script or for a podcast script. So, Jim, what's going on? I haven't seen you around in a bit. I think AI is great for the long run, only for evergreen content like information that will not really change so fast over time for articles. I'm sure I messed up the the cadence a lot on that, but it's funny because I'm energized. If you haven't noticed, if you've checked out my YouTube channel here in the last couple weeks, I've been publishing a lot more. I took a long hiatus from kind of playing along with the algorithm, but every now and then my interests line up with the algorithm and I run with it. When I have a lot of ideas, I'll run with it. And it's been good. So I've been publishing a little bit more. And some of the videos are decidedly like AI is not the answer for everything, but for some things, it's the perfect answer. It's a great solution for the right problem. One thing that I've seen a lot of people do as an interesting experiment is publish bulk content. Very interesting, right? Can we get ahead of Google? If we're pushing out all this content, can we get ahead of Google and rank and earn some money? And generally, I think for most people, your time is better spent elsewhere. If you're working on something where you're thinking, maybe a year or two, this is not going to work anymore, or even like months, right? Is it going to be months? You're going to work on something like full time and it's only going to work for like 2 months? Or are you trying to compete with other people that have more time than you to try to publish as much content as possible? And I think most people have a better outcome, or they have potential for a better outcome if they spend their time on something that has like more longevity past a couple months. I could be totally wrong, but if the barrier to entry to publish as much content as possible without providing human input, then someone's going to be able to do more than you, right? Someone's going to do more than you. They're going to do a little bit better keyword research. It'll just be a little bit better. And it's just it's not a game that I want to play. So I don't think it's worthwhile for most people. That said, I do know that if people are working on that, they may have a very good reason. And it could be they want to test it out. And it might be they want to earn money on the short term, but they don't really care about the long-term investment of their time in the short term. That is totally valid, and I can't judge what is valuable for someone to work on. But I'm doing that completely, right? So, but I realize there's other perspectives. I understand that. But overall, I would say there's probably a better use of time. So the contrast that I have here, and the place that I find myself, is I'm saying, hey, look out for AI content. This could be a waste of time. I published a video the other day that said, does anyone want to read AI content? Probably not. But if we're using AI for this application where I am essentially just recording my verbal answers and then using ChatGPT as a proofreader and a transcriber and someone to clean up the mess of my ideas, then maybe that's a great application that will have longevity that could help out. And I'm telling you, a use case is I could ramble on for 40 minutes instead of like writing it out and typing. I could ramble on for 40 minutes. I have a transcript. I could use voice typing on Google Docs or your phone or whatever, right? It's on everything now, right? So you could voice type, and then you can get a very clean article or piece of content for whatever format you need from ChatGPT. That's a good application, I think. All right. What questions do we have out there? So the other thing I'm doing with launching the new podcast, I'm going to share a little bit of information. I've been on a few podcasts in the last few weeks here, and I've been talking about it. So things are going to be published in the next week or a couple weeks. So I'm starting a new show. It'll be in the beginning of the year. I will try, I'm going to do a public case study. I'm going to start a podcast along with a YouTube channel and an email list. All things that I like. Those are the things I always talk about. The intent will be to potentially sell it in 6 to 9 months, although that's not set in stone. I'm going to have to be flexible. I will need to pivot if possible. I will be the host starting off, but that is one of the problems to solve. If I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to sell a podcast at the end of this and I'm literally like launching it, how important, how difficult will it be to transition the show to a new owner? Is that going to be a non-starter because the audience is just there for me? Am I delusional enough to think that the audience is just there for me? I don't think so. I think they're going to be there for the content, but there are many problems that I will need to solve. There are hopefully not catastrophic issues that will make it impossible, but it's an interesting case study. And I haven't seen anyone do it. Everyone that I talk to seems to think that it is a very interesting idea. They haven't seen it done, and they're really curious to see what's going to happen. They're not just my friends. I mean, most of them are my friends, but they are business people. And I'm like, poke holes in it. Like, what other issues do we have? So one, we have like, the fact that the host is going to go away. I could hire a host, right? I could hire a host from the beginning and then have that person transition. But I suspect that the new owner may have a desire to host the show. The other thing is I don't know the valuation on such a business. So I don't think the normal multiples are going to apply. The reason why I want to sell it is, number one, it'll be interesting, but I see a lot of podcasts starting up. I have observed this over the last couple of years, and I see that companies, agencies, software companies are trying to start a podcast and they're doing a bad job. Basically, they're not doing a great job at it. So I see an interesting project to work on. The other thing, so there's a couple pieces here because you find people joined me live. I'll share it with you. I'm also going to have a boot camp style mastermind where you're going to come along for the ride with me, and you're going to meet with me each week in a group setting. We'll cover some material, but it'll be exactly what I'm doing to launch my show, which might be different than what other people would need to do to launch their shows. But I'll tell you what I'm doing after launching 3 shows myself and running shows and talking to people who are very successful. So there's some tweaks that I'm going to do that are different than what I've done in the past and different than what I do currently for my show, because I have a specific set of things in mind where I want to launch the show in a certain way with a certain number of episodes pre-recorded, ready to go on day 1. So if you're interested in that stuff, be sure you are on the email list. I'll be talking about it, and I'm planning on starting it 1 month from now. So January 15th, which is a Monday. We'll start it that week. I'm not sure if we'll start it that specific Monday, but we'll start it that week, and it should be very interesting. I'm scared to do this. So that's one area where there's not necessarily a high degree of failure, but there's a likelihood, especially when you're working on a public project that you haven't done before. There's a high potential for this to not work out that well every step of the way. So the show might not do well. I might not be able to sell it. I'm doing this boot camp. People may not want to sign up. They may not have the time. Even if they want to start a podcast, the timing might be off. So that's one. There's a couple pieces where I'm going to have to figure it out, and it might not work, and I may have to pivot and bail, but it'll be very interesting. And one thing that's kind of cool, one positive thing with podcasting or YouTube, even if it doesn't work, it's an interesting story that people want to hear about. And you take it one step further. I can also take this idea, this experiment, and talk about it at conferences or other places. I'm not really a online, what do they call those? What are the online, it's like the online conference? There's a name for it. I forget. Someone will let me know in the chat. Summit, the online summits. Yeah, I think those are overall shitty. It's really good for whoever's running it to like build their email list. Maybe they make a few bucks like selling the videos later. But I was on a lot of those for several years, and it's just kind of a waste of time. I think every now and then one hits, but our industry was kind of inundated with those in like 2015, 2016. And for me, it just ended up being like kind of a waste of time. So I stopped doing online summits some time ago. But the point is, if you try something and you do it in public, whether it works or not, you usually learn something, and some people will want to follow along with it. The secondary thing is, I'll be able to talk about it on YouTube and my podcast, and that will most likely help expand the potential market for buyers of the show, which is very interesting. So I'm using all the unfair advantages that I possibly can. I have an email list. I have a network of people that I have helped out over the years and have good relationships with them. So I'm gonna use everything I have to promote the show. All right, cool. So if you're just joining in, you missed the demo, but you could rewind it. The other thing is you could just hop over to the link in the description, and there's a cheat sheet right here. So you could download it. It essentially goes through the process that I outlined, which is here on ChatGPT, but very straightforward. The big thing is like you're using voice typing to provide your input, and then you can copy and paste that over into ChatGPT, and it will take your input and use it in the article, which is pretty amazing. You kind of do it section by section, but it's pulling together all the ideas that Tony Maritato shared with us a few weeks ago. And I will also create a short demo video, which should probably be about 5 minutes or so, outlining exactly how to do this so that you can, share it with your friends. I appreciate it if you do. If you found this helpful, you could share it with people that you think might find it useful. So we don't see too many questions today. I'm not going to keep talking on and on just to burn an hour. So thanks a lot for hopping on. If you're not on the email list, you can sign up in the description, and be sure to check out some of the recent videos that I've published. The one that I published yesterday was about lifestyle businesses, which I believe in, versus sort of the hustle culture and having like a 7 or 8 figure business, which I don't have an interest in doing that. It sounds very stressful. Sounds stressful, but that's what I talked about with a buddy of mine yesterday in the interview. So we kind of debated back and forth. There's some valid points for each group, and there's really no wrong answer. Like some people truly value the money more, and other people value the time and just freedom a little bit more. There's no wrong or right answer. All right. That's it for today. It looks like Emran just popped in, but we are heading out. If you missed it, you could rewind and watch from the beginning. Thanks a lot, and we'll see y'all next week.